got some vehicle problems on the way here. So I'm sorry that I'm up here so late. So let's go ahead and get into our lesson. All right, just oh dear.
Sorry. You're good.
All right, and just a verse that we can touch on this week, especially is. This is especially relevant to me this morning, but trust the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. So just reviewing, what's the connection we see between Jacob and Jesus that we've gone over the past few weeks?
Well, Jesus is in the lineage of Jacob.
Right.
The beginning of the Israelite nation, shall we say.
Right, yeah. And then just starting off with our lesson, I'll just read all of this. Starting in Genesis 27, starting in verse 46. Then Rebekah, said to Isaac, I love my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me? Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of peoples. May He give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojournings that God gave to Abraham. Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, and the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, and Jacob and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he directed him, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and begun to Padan Aram. So, when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, sister of Nebiah. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones to the place, he put it under his head and lay down on it to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it all and said, I am the Lord your God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he put on his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was at the first. Then Jacob made a vow saying, if God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I will go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. And this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you. And John 1 says, I'm just connecting it. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. She says to him, because I said to you, I saw you on the fig tree, do you believe? You will see great things than him. He said, and truly, truly I say to you, you will see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the field, to the land of people to the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth is large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water sheep, put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. And Jacob said to them, my brothers, where do you come from? They said, we are from Haran. He said to them, do you know Laban the son of Nahor? They said, we know him. He said to them, is it well with him? They said, it is well. And see, Rachel's daughter is going with the sheep. He said, behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. The lot of sheep would go, pasture. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together, and the stones roll from the mouth of the well. Then we watered the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him, and brought him to his house. And Jacob told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him for a month. Sorry. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful and form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love that he had. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife that I may go into her for 4 times completed. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. In the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zillah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. In the morning, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why did you deceive me? Laban said, it is not so done in our country. Give the younger one firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you another, also in return for serving me another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. And also Laban gave his female servant, his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went in to Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. She called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, for I have borne 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Remember, this is a lot of reading. I thought it was more broken up than this, so I guess I was wrong.
You didn't need to read some?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's, wow, that's an overreaction if I've ever seen one. But Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God who has withheld you from the fruit of the womb? Then she said, here is my servant Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went in with her. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, Rebekah. So she called his name Naphtali. Okay, finally, but from these 4 women came the 12 tribes of Israel. From Leah we have Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. From Zilpah it was Gad and Asher. For Rachel it was Joseph and Benjamin. And for Bilhah it was Dan and Naphtali. So, that slide's not in here. That's fine.
They're on front and back.
What makes sense then? So, if you pay attention to this, you'll see that it was in fact it was the wives who named the children who were born, even to the maidservants, which is a really interesting fact, because when you look at it, in the culture, it would be normal for the father to name it. So it goes to show that even as Jacob was working, he put so much emphasis on his wives. He loved them so much that even to that he. I had the word just a second ago. Oh my gosh, I am just out of it. But he yielded the right to be able to name his own son to his wives. And interestingly, only one daughter was born, that being Dinah. I don't think that I mentioned it in the text that I read. But based on what we've seen here, what can we learn about the relationship between Jacob and his wives?
There's it's hard for us to grasp this. This is a very different culture. It's a very different marriage relationship. Obviously, we don't want to use the word, but I'll use it anyways, in this polygamy, right? He's got more than one wife. There is such an emphasis on the relationships that we should have had with our spouses in these stories. You look at the work that he did for his wives, 7 years and 7 years and so on. And we would call it kind of a prearranged situation, right? Parents had so much more say in their kids' relationships than what we do today. We kind of think, well, our kids will find love and we'll let them make their choices. And, we'll kind of educate whether we like them or not. And to be honest, that's not turned out so well. I mean, our younger generations just picking and choosing based on their emotions and who they're, pretty happy with at the moment has turned out to be a pretty poor way of doing things. Right. Now, that being said, he's got 4 wives. He does love them, and there's a whole lot of 2 wives and 2 concubines, yeah. But he does. There's a lot to allow her to name the children. I took his exact one. I let her name my children, so being biblical.
I mean, one of the things that I noticed in this passage is Jacob was continually, facing turmoil. I mean, I cannot confidently say, being 18, that I have worked 14 years for a wife, being 18 and single. But I can only imagine what it would have been like for Jacob to just work for 7 years. Right? It feels like just a few days because of that one. But even after that, Laban gives me the old switcheroo. I can only imagine working for 7 years to not get the wife that I had asked for. Then have to work, and then have to work another 7 years to get what was rightfully owed.
You know, and it's funny because he's like, oh, well, you know, it's not the custom of our people to marry the younger first. You didn't have an opportunity in the last 7 years to mention that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
no, they just didn't shave you and shave you.
And then, and even after the 14 years, I can only imagine how much drama would have been in that house with 4 women. And I mean no disrespect, just from experience. And so,
Also gives us a little bit of insight into
Right.
Laban and his character.
right. But so based on that, have you ever experienced turmoil in your family like we see recorded here in the life of Jacob?
No.
What, drama?
You know, Holly made a good point. You know, had this not happened, we would have had 12 tribes, which would have set things up the way that God had planned. And a lot of people look at this, I've had conversations, and people are like, you know, these are some really messed up situations that supposedly God is orchestrating to, you know, his so-called people to bring his son. And they have this mentality that these are not normal things. Like, you don't normally have, you know, work 14 years, get, you know, the switcheroo and all these things that happen. But really the lesson comes down to God's plan is no matter how bad we mess things up, he's going to make it work for the right thing. Now, it's not always the right thing for our lives and what we want, but he'll always take a situation, good or bad, no matter how bad we mess it up, and make it into the right thing for his kingdom in the long term.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, this is just a side note here, but do you think it was wrong for Jacob to take his cousins, or in fact 2 different women, and their servants to father more children? Do you all think that was wrong inside of God?
Well, I'm gonna take a note from Jesus' playbook and answer a question with a question. What was his father's instructions? How many wives did his father say go get?
1.
One. But because he didn't get what he wanted, he kept on going until he got what he wanted. And then you have to deal with all the extra consequences.
Right.
Sometimes it's like us, we're focused on what we want instead of what God wants. And he has a perfect plan, and we kind of mess it up because we want what we want. And he still blesses us and helps us through that trouble, but we gotta remember that we're selfish and we're human.
Right. I mean, this is, I think we could all agree that this is a fairly messy situation overall.
So whose fault was it that he ended up with Leah, in addition to everything else? It's like, well, how did he not know that was who he married?
Right.
So a little bit of a pay attention there, maybe, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, just due to the bride's face being under a veil, he wouldn't have known until probably even the next morning. And I can only imagine what it would have been like waking up to that. But But I think we can all agree that this was a messy situation overall. But and this is something that I've actually seen while just talking with people that I grew up with. But people who claim that Jacob could be used as an expression, that as an example rather, that marriage does not have to be between one man and one woman. I've heard this story used as evidence against that, or for that claim. How would you respond to that?
Right. So, I think that God could have and would have accomplished his plan for Israel through just Leah. But because Jacob wanted Rachel and started all that, it caused the jealousy of the other brothers towards Rachel's sons, which caused him to be sold into slavery to Egypt, and then, all these other things. And everybody says, well, it ended up working as God's plan, but I don't think it was God's plan to have the entire Hebrew race enslaved in Egypt and mistreated for that long. But I think that was a consequence to all of these actions here, but God still had a plan of salvation, and I think that's the running theme through the Bible is we don't do exactly what God has intended for us, we still do what we want, and he always has a plan of salvation and redemption even though we mess up. But I do still think his plan could have been and would have been more easily done if he had just stuck with Leah.
Right. Well, what's interesting is that both Levi, the priestly tribe, and Judah, the kingly tribe, do come from Leah, which is interesting to think about. You have both Moses and Aaron coming from Leah, and you also have David by extension, Solomon, and all that, and continuing the lineage down to Jesus. So it's just something that's interesting to think about.
Brandon, looking back through things in the Old Testament, it's kind of hard to find somebody in the lineage that just had one wife.
It is.
And also didn't have concubines. I mean, that was, appears to me, the basic pattern of life.
Right.
And again, we know that God created just Eve for Adam. He didn't talk about making his other wives two, and just one. But you look back through all your Old Testament stuff, and especially talking about the lineage of Jesus, almost nobody had one wife.
Right. Especially, and that's especially true once you start getting to David and so on and so forth.
I don't think that was a biblical reason.
No.
I think it was just so cultural and worldly at the time that they were, just following the ways of the world and not being, not following exactly what God had intended.
I can't
Right.
imagine people looking like that. Can you? I can't imagine.
And one of the things that I have found through study is that example is not the same thing as endorsement. Because looking at this, I think that we are all in agreement here that this was a messy situation all around, and I believe this is closer to an example of what not to do than to an example of what you should do. And I believe that God's plan will be accomplished regardless. The only question is which side you want to be on.
Every time you see these things happening, though, just like with Abraham, trouble came out of that. Trouble came out of the way that they tried to do it. The same thing here with Jacob. Trouble's going to come out of that. And all those brothers, they hated Joseph, and Joseph was going to be the chosen one. So problem and trouble came out, turmoil came out of all this thing where they were involving other people in supposedly trying to achieve God's will. or trying to take matters into their own hand, or whatever it was they were trying to do, every time these things happen, it led to turmoil and trouble.
Right, and I believe that a constant between both this story and the story of Joseph is that favoritism does not get you anywhere good. I mean, showing favor to one person whom you are supposed to have equal love for, showing favor to one person over the other, I wouldn't even say it can, I'd say that it will create resentment. And it will inevitably lead to more drama, more chaos, more sin in a family or a community. I believe that when we show favoritism, we are simply putting one person over the other when we are all made in God's image. So it's just something to make note of. But and going back to I know her name. I'm just stuttering really bad today. Rebecca. She knew that God had made a promise, but rather than waiting on God, similarly to how Sarah did earlier, she took matters into her own hands and said, "Here, have my servant, that at least I might be able to do something." So, similar to that, when do you find it difficult to trust in God in a situation like that? Well, what is the situation that you can find in your life like that? When would it be difficult to trust God and take things into your own hands instead?
We do that all the time. Every time that we sin, we say, I think I can do this better.
Too many times we do that, and I think it's my complete lack of patience that causes me to say, all right, on with life, I've got to do this. And so a lot of things, too many times do that instead of just life would be so much better, so much easier if I did, if we did just went along and let God take care of the things in our lives instead of trying to do it on our own. I think for a response to the question here about one man, one woman,
Right. We got a little bit of talking about that.
I would talk to the fact that Jesus himself said for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife.
Right.
Singular. So I would say, okay, let's look into the New Testament and move forward to time when God wants us to do.
Right. But I mean, I think that I can speak for everyone here when I say that it would be hard to believe that Jacob had an easy time trusting God. It would be hard to think that he didn't have doubts in the situation, being surrounded by constant turmoil, deception, and by deception, drama, and frankly sin. So I'd like to end off the lesson this week just by praying over Rich. Good night, nurse. By praying over everyone here today. It's just that this week, and it's not an if, it's a when. When we face deception, drama, sin, stress, that we don't like Rebecca did, take things into our own hands. No, we instead give it to God, trust in Him. So let's go before God and pray. Our Father in heaven, I thank you. I thank you that I'm able to be here and worship with my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. I thank you for your word. I thank you that you're here for us. I thank you that you have a plan for us. And Father, I know that this week and onward, even today, things are going to happen. And it's not going to be easy for us to trust in you at times. So I pray for this, Father, that you would look over us. That you would remind us to not take things into our own hands, and instead let you. You're the creator of the universe. I thank you for life, both physical and spiritual, and eternal in your Son. And his name I pray. Amen.
I think too many times, well, I forgot what I was gonna say. But, yeah, we look at things and we approach the Lord in prayer as a final instead of as we're about to start something.
Prayer is the foundation of a spiritual life, not the end goal.
Yep.
But yeah.